Is your client care team spending too much time on admin tasks, chasing paperwork, and billing? Are you worried that hiring more therapists will only overload your client care team while they're also managing a long wait list? If you're nodding along, it's time for a customer relationship management system, aka a CRM. But not just any CRM. You need a clinical CRM, like the one we just started using at MindSight. Practice Access is the first HIPAA-compliant CRM specifically designed for growing group therapy practices. If you're ready to ditch the intake, Google Sheet of Doom, and finally get the data you need to scale your practice, visit practiceaccess.com and sign up for a demo to learn more about how you can save your intake team 10 hours per week. That's practiceaccess.com and mention MindSight for 20% off your first 2 months. Hi, I'm Casey, and right here beside me is Kelsey. We are licensed professional counselors, mothers, entrepreneurs, and besties. We know firsthand what it's like to wake up one day and think, how in the heck did I wind up here?
Through our own journeys of self-discovery, we found that joy is something that has to be pursued through internal work. Now we are on a mission to help women from all walks of life understand themselves more so they can have real lasting joy.
Join us every Thursday to hear fun and insightful interviews with experts who can point you toward self-discovery and fulfillment.
Welcome back, besties. With you, I have Casey and also Mike. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Kelsey. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Hey, Kelsey, can we play a game?
Yeah.
Okay, close your eyes. Spell Mike's last name.
No.
Pretty close.
You can't do it?
No.
Okay. Well, listen, we want to talk to you, Mike, a little bit about something. And something that you're an expert at.
Okay.
You write this down, okay?
I'm writing it down.
Okay. Talking.
Is that it? Like I'm an expert at talking?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say talking nonstop.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say talking shit, but
that's true too.
I mean, we can put that in there. No, for real though.
Yeah.
So you do something that I think not a lot of people do, and not a lot of people do well, especially men. And I'm not being stereotypical here. Not that bad. Not that much, but anyway. So you have a ton of things going on. You know, you've got like your writing, you've got your speaking, you've got businesses, all of these things.
Get your eyes dilated.
Yeah, you're stoned out of your brain.
I'm a stoner, yeah, right.
And would you say that primarily you, like on a daily basis, do you work mostly with women? I mean, you have like a lot of women in your workspace and your team. And okay, Kelsey brought this up and I thought, yeah, this is really interesting. I think it could be a good topic of just communication in general. One thing I noticed about you, and I noticed this about you when I came to Boonton. Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Boonton?
That's the proper. Yeah, I mean, we pronounce it Booton because we swallow the N.
Booton.
Yeah, Booton. Yeah, that's New Jersey, but you say it perfectly. You pronounce it actually correctly. No one says
okay.
it.
Okay. So
like
when
Louisville.
I came, that's not how you say it.
Louisville.
It's Louisville.
Louisville.
There you go. You got to like a little angry.
Yeah, Louisville.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Glad we cleared that up.
Thank you.
So when I was there, I noticed that not only were there a lot of females that work in the office, but you've had relationships with them, some of them all the way back to like high school.
Yeah, now you say relationships, they're friends. Yeah.
No, I don't
so we have
like relation. You have not had relations.
No.
I'm just talking about, and that takes a lot of things. I think it takes patience. It takes communication. It takes just a lot of things to be able to cultivate friendships that are also employees for that long of a time. And just to be honest, like women are not easy.
Nor guys, right?
Right.
Yeah. So a little context, we have 20 employees, 2 office spaces in this town. So one about a block or 2 down the road. So collectively 20 employees. And I count myself as one. And there's one other guy and everyone else is female. it's by chance. It's not that we're seeking that out, meaning female, but we are seeking out certain values and cultural behaviors, certain perceptions. And so one of the big things, it's actually interesting. Right outside my office here, we have a sign up on the wall that has the values. About, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, we had a retreat. We're talking about our values and revisiting them. And I said, well, one of the most important things to me is no dicks allowed. Like, I'm not going to deal with dicks, but I'm not going to be a dick. Like, it works both directions. And I think it was Jenna, but maybe it was someone else, says, I get it, but it's broy. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. And she goes, there's a different sentiment. And what it came out to be was there was that show at the time. Oh my God. The coach who coaches the soccer team, he's an American coach. He goes to England.
No.
No? Kelsey, have you ever seen that?
No, I'm not.
Oh my
is
God.
it a movie? Is it a movie?
No, it's a TV show. It's like, I think it's on HBO or something.
I saw something like that advertised, but I thought it was new. I didn't think it was an old show.
It's old within the last 2 years.
Oh,
But-
okay. Okay. But I know what you're talking about, but I haven't watched it.
I invite you to binge it. It ends up being
Okay.
one of my favorite shows. I never intended to watch it, but once I was a couple episodes in, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
What's interesting is the premise is that it's an American football, as in how we define football, goes to England for their football, which is soccer. And he's set up to fail. But the guy is such an optimist. He cares so much. He doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know the field is called a pitch. Like he doesn't understand anything, but he just believes. And he keeps on putting it out there. And this team turns from a marginal team to a winning team. And like, oh, that's what it is. Like so many entrepreneurs, you know it, how difficult it is and the struggles you go through. I think one of the biggest allies you can have is just someone who believes it, someone who's going to root you along. And so that's a big thing in our office here is believing in others. We're all created equal. We're just humans going through this journey. And so Amy and Andrea and Jenna, we all went to high school together. Amy, I think was the first one on board from our back high school days, but Amy was always just like the nicest, caring person. And so was Jenna. And so was Andrea. And it just naturally has come about. It's kind of cool. The one thing I feel bad about though, is occasionally we'll talk about something back in high school because we all remember, back in the day. There's a couple of people here that weren't there back in the day. So it feels, I don't want anyone to feel excluded, and they're boring stories anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But how people were back in high school, is their disposition how they are today? In my opinion, people don't change much. The essence of who they are doesn't change much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I just found it to be kind of interesting because a lot of entrepreneurs and just people in general, but especially entrepreneurs, I hear they say that the hardest part about running a business or owning a business is just dealing with the interactions with the people. It's like there's just always something that's exhausting. So like, do you feel that even though you have a great team and what
I don't feel that
saying?
exhaustion because I can be myself, they can be them, you guys can be you. When you had an event, you had that conference, not the book launch, but prior to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're taking pictures. You were the first one to pinch me. We're taking a picture. And
no, I was not.
You were. My heart
I'm
thinks
with
you
Mike
were.
on this.
I did not pinch him.
Kelsey had a little few drinks in her. And she's like, let's take some pictures. And all of a sudden I feel this like scorpion sting. Like, God. And you can even see the picture, the deformity in my face. Like, ah. And I'm like, it's who you are. It's so lovely because it's who you are. You're the bratty little sister in a good way.
Yeah.
But
you're like a papaw though,
I'm a little papaw because especially with the gray beard, the balding head.
Yeah.
The limp.
Well,
the cocaine and
right. The
addiction.
acid in the eyes.
The acid in the eyes. Yeah. Pupils. My point is when people are truly themselves, to me, that's the most attractive quality. It's just that, I like hanging out with people who just are themselves unabashedly. And that environment's here. It's at your place. No one feels that reserved in being who they are. And therefore we can be our greatest expression. It's just joyous to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kelsey, do you have anything to say? Because you're not saying anything and I just keep talking.
I'm just waiting.
I'm a big talker.
I'm curious. So a big part of what you do is communication, right? So has that always been easy for you, or did you have to work really hard at communicating?
I had to get better at it. I've had some natural ability. I remember back in college, once I was in a fraternity and there was some meeting and there was like this argument breaking out. And I said something and the whole group stopped and said, that was it. That was kind of the first realization. Oh, I was able to summarize something. I wouldn't call it a super talent or anything, but I was able to summarize things. Then in our church here, I said, I want to be able to support people, but through public speaking and stuff like that. I offered to be not the lay leader, but the reader of the Bible verses. So that you always have someone come up from the congregation to do a reading. And I did it. I remember the first time I went up, my face went flush red. I didn't rehearse in advance, so I couldn't pronounce like 90% of the names.
Mm-hmm.
Jezebub, then, walketh toward the cuppeth. It was a disaster, but the congregation was like, good job, do it again. And then by the 10th or 15th time, they was like, oh, just a couple of things, like actually prepare in advance. And, and it started helping me communicate more effectively. The other thing I learned too from church is the power of stories. I noticed when the preacher was doing a sermon, if it was just like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, or, whatever, it wasn't as engaging as much as a story. And I found that too, when speaking publicly, when I engage a story, especially that's self-deprecating, that puts us all in the equal playing field. Mm-hmm. That's a really good form of communication. And so I practice that often.
Can I admit something?
Yeah, what's up?
So this sounds awful, but whatever. I used to go to church and I would go, well, there's more context to it, but whatever. We'll talk about that another time. I went to a church that, in my opinion, had the most compelling pastor. He was the best storyteller. Everything was good. Like everything was right. Like the momentum, the build up, the thing, all of it. I would go, I had a whole entire notebook and I would just take notes while he was preaching. And everybody would come up to me after the sermon, and not all the time, but usually every sermon, somebody would come up to me and be like, wow, like you really took a lot of notes and you were really into it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, totally into it. My notes had nothing to do with the sermon. It was all about how he told stories.
Oh, interesting.
Like how he opened, how he closed. Like I had it down to a T how that worked. And you're right. Like everyone would just hang on his every word. And it was because he was such a great speaker.
Yeah.
And just to get people to remember, like, and you do this in your speeches and things that you go around and do. And I noticed it, but like, it's not a ton of content. You've got one message you're trying to drive home, and everything would just come back to that one message. And it was easy for people to remember, just these one-liners, like these just one little things here and there. Yeah. And so I'm right there with you on the church thing. It made a big
I love that you took notes on how to speak. I mean, it's definitely a talent of yours too, because I've had the opportunity to see you speak, and I'm not, blowing smoke up you. You're really good at it. What's interesting, I think, that differentiates the average speaker / communicator versus from someone superior is that people that are really good at it have a story and a point, and they work in conjunction. When they make a point or an argument, they'll back it with a story, and it kind of flows back and forth. The other thing is they add the salt and pepper, and like yours is you got certain phrases and stuff that are unique to you, and it brings all the color out. Kind of like a musician who's playing chords. Everyone can play the same chords, but when you hit that special note, it brings the music full circle. And so the best communicators and speakers lean into their uniqueness, their unique style. That becomes very charismatic, very appealing to the audience because you're getting something with a little salt and pepper.
Well, the other thing I want to know is, so this is all fine and dandy, like, yay haw, good job. But I want to know how you handle conflict.
Like with my wife?
Are you an avoider? Well, any kind.
She hung up on me today. It's funny.
Oh, good for her.
So I accidentally threw out a piece of mail she was mailing out. So we got junk mail, and I must have accidentally put it in the recycle bin. She says, where is it? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I may have accidentally thrown it out. And then it's just click. I'm like, middle conversation, just click. Just frustrated. So what I do is I call her back, and the benefit of the doubt. So I said, hey, the reception in our town is not that good. So I said, maybe it dropped, but we were still talking. So let's get through it. And it was not addressed, but the conversation continued. I think in the last year, I can't speak to it, but I had major conflict, business conflict. What was really interesting, because I did lose sleep over it. One thing I did was I started to pray every morning for this other entity, genuinely pray for them. And what was so interesting is it started to give me relief. So they were coming after me for stuff I can't disclose, unfortunately, but it was aggressive. There was in my perception, a lot of ego from this entity. And so what I did was I met with the team here and said, the first thing I want to do is just pray for them, because clearly they're hurting. To be just like, an animal that's injured is the most dangerous animal because they can't run away. They'll attack. That's what this entity was doing. And so met with the team and I started praying for them. And my gosh, it gave me such relief, and it settled out, and it actually settled pretty favorably for us, and it's done. But I used to, want to take down my competition, or if I was in conflict with someone, to win the battle. And I realized there's no value in that. And to really see if there's a way, and I tried with this group to reach out and see if there's ways to collaborate and support, and they were not interested, but that even felt good too, to try to see something from someone else's eyes, but to also be a service for them. Yeah. So that's one way I handle conflict.
Okay. Let's say this incident aside. Okay. So let's just say it's something internal, like maybe just something within your business.
Sure.
Doesn't have
like
to be
team
anything.
member?
Yeah. Let's just say, are you more of, well, let's think this through. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's give them like another chance. Like, are you that kind? Are you more of an avoider? Like, okay, let me just step back and see if this fixes itself type thing. Or do you feel that you're more confrontational, not necessarily in a negative way, but like, hey, look, like I noticed this thing's happening. What's going on? Is there something going on that, what do you feel like you are?
Text your dirty tax secrets to Tatiana. Don't worry, she won't tell anyone. Everyone's got them, right? Tatiana Sawyer is a tax and business strategist, CPA, and MBA who makes your life less taxing. She helps to reduce your taxes legally so that you make and keep more of your money. Get her second opinion discovery without leaving your current accountant. She'll identify missed opportunities and recommend a cure. Visit TatianaSawyer.com to learn more.
Yeah, but I guess if I have a default, I'll bring it to the table as quickly as possible. But there's definitely circumstances that I'll avoid. If it's minor, like some things do just resolve themselves. And by bringing them up, it just aggravates it. So I was like, is it even worth discussing? And I also know, I look at my history, like if I have conflict with someone within a month, I won't remember I remember we had a conflict. I won't remember over what. Within a year, I won't remember we even had conflict. So I'm like, is it worth it? There's a book by Susie Orman. It's called the 10-10-10 rule. And what she says in her book, when you're considering any circumstance, ask yourself, how are you going to feel about what action you take now in the next 10 hours? That's the first 10. The next 10 months, in the next 10 years. So most of us default to the immediate. If I call this person now and call them on their BS and they're totally wrong, the next 10 hours, I'll feel vindicated. But the next 10 months, I may have lost a friend over this or a good communication, and trust may have been compromised. It may have not been a big deal. And 10 years from now, this is so inconsequential. No one died. It's not worth it. So looking at those different frames helps me decide to call it out, to wait it out, or to avoid. But if I'm in a circumstance, today something came up, not with my wife, this was just in our office here, of something that it was best I address it right away. Otherwise, the circumstance would probably continue on and worsen. But I also I'm not perfect at it, but I try to go into every circumstance saying, I don't know everything. I only know my own vantage point. What do I know here? Go in looking to learn. I work with this one person who is naturally defensive of our organization. And this person's background probably justifies not trusting folks, where I overtrust. And so I will consult with them at times, especially if I'm in conflict, saying, what do you see that I don't see? And that's been helpful. I hate like sharing it's like it's advice because I'm so far from perfect. It's just how I deal with shiitake.
I think in order to give advice, you shouldn't be perfect in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't be very good advice.
Yeah, you're right, Kels. calling it out too, like going in and say, hey, I'm not perfect and I don't see certain things. And this is the way I'm approaching it. But I also realize there's probably more to it. I can't see the full globe. Of course, if I receive that, if someone comes to me and approaches it that way, they're giving me an opportunity for me to fill in the dark spot. But when someone approaches me, it's pure conflict. Like, you screwed this up. You're totally wrong. Then I go into defense mode. So yeah, you're right, Kelsey. It's the better approach.
Well, in all of these questions, they're all related in my brain, because I think when you have someone that is an entrepreneur, that is a leader, that is a speaker, kind of understanding like how they handle conflict, how they prefer conflict, how they communicate with their team is important, because you're doing things that a lot of people are trying to do. And I think cultivating a team with a foundation of healthy communication is critical. You can't really grow a business without that.
Yeah.
And
oh no, for sure.
You can't keep a business without that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we need to do is to allow mistakes to happen from ourselves, from our colleagues. I think in the traditional business environments, we set this artificial expectation that our team, they cannot make mistakes. And if they do, there'll be some kind of punitive thing. But as the business owner, my God, the number of mistakes that I make, I'm fraught with mistakes. But I don't fire myself. I'm like, yeah, move on. And so when our team sees that we give that grace to them, they're much more open. I remember coming into the office one day, and I don't know, it was a few months ago, and there was 4 or 5 folks here, and they were all just, it was, I don't know, 10 o'clock in the morning, and they're laughing, and they're sitting around a table, and they're just talking about home and stuff. It wasn't like a quote unquote lunch break or whatever. It was just, it's an opportunity to discuss something, and they were having a lot of fun. And I walked in, and they didn't miss a beat and just continue that conversation. It used to be when the cat's away, the mice will play when you come back. And to me, that was like the ultimate expression of trust, confidence. That I trust, I really do. My team, they're doing their best to get an extraordinary job done here. It doesn't need to work within some kind of crazy schedule. They don't have to follow some militant expectations, and they are encouraged to be themselves. And I hope they expect that from me too. And that seems to work well. We have in our author office here 8 employees in total. We're managing 4 licenses, a dozen or more products, 10 or 11 books. There's a lot of pieces moving on. I think comparatively to other authors I know that have the same kind of product mix and licensees and so forth, we're a thinner organization than most. By the way, most of those 8 people are part-timers here. But because people have the freedom to be, not to be controlled and to truly express themselves, people just naturally perform their best. And I wonder if that's part of the communication, that freedom to just be yourself.
I think it's a foundation of trust. I think you kind of already said it. It's a culture of trust. And when you were saying that, I was thinking about my team down at the front office. I mean, like, maybe that's a compliment, Kelsey, because, they just sit down there, and I mean, you would think that they're having a rager, like what are y'all doing?
That's great. But they're getting the job done, right?
Well, yeah, they have to get the job done. Yeah,
they have to, but I think they want to, and they're having fun doing it. So there's a book out from John Briggs called the 3-3 rule, or the 3.3 rule. What he argues is basically there's a human battery, and we need to recover, just like we need sleep every night to clean the battery or to recharge it. During the workday, we need these moments of relief. And I'd way rather be with the team than going in social media and excluding yourself from the team.
It definitely recharges me.
I bet, right?
Yeah. She's one that, like, after every meeting, she's got to get up from her desk and like social around the office, make a round, and then come back and sit down and do the next meeting.
That's great. That's great. Like, that's the definition of recharging. I was reading an article about actual movement, and I'm going to bastardize this because I can't remember the source, but they basically said the best thing you can do to recharge quickly is to get a new exposure to something new, ideally get into nature, just get out and move. It's interesting how the expending of energy is the best way to get back energy.
Well, is that some form of bilateral stimulation, Kelsey? Like what we were just talking about with Ryan, like nature's way of stimulating and recharging and healing your brain. It would be getting out into nature, going for a walk while talking to someone while you're doing it. Yeah, have you ever heard that, Mike?
No, I've done it. I've practiced it. I didn't know the term. bilateral stimulation.
So have you ever heard of EMDR?
Yeah, that's the eye movement, right? Rapid.
Yeah.
That's a form of that, I guess.
Yeah. So like what we were just talking about in nature, that's a natural form of EMDR.
Oh, I got it. How was it how'd you guys like Ryan Pink? Was he good?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
He's so wickedly smart.
I know. He was like asking me questions. I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? Because I don't know what that
He
is.
was deflecting.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so
it's
wickedly
good.
smart.
He's very smart. And I love a good Canadian accent. The process.
Oh, process and a boot. Yeah.
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 Cracks me up. Well, listen, we won't keep you on here. I know we took up some of your time because I had some computer
Oh,
malfunction.
no. I appreciate both of you having me.
Yeah. Well, you're not too bad.
I hope I'm not your worst
So.
episode ever.
You probably will be.
Probably will
It's
be,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm sure somebody will feel sorry and listen, and it'll be all right.
Yeah, and they'll be like, oh my God, his eyes. What are up with his eyes? I hope it's better.
They just look like black holes right now.
Yeah, still. Yeah, I have like, talking about holes, I got some holes in my retina, but it's supposedly normal. And the doctor's like, oh yeah.
Sounds normal.
Yeah, it does sound normal, right? But they go, if fluid gets in there, you can get detached retina, that can cause blindness. So I went there and it dilate, and they said, no procedure necessary, but you're going to be an eye freak for the rest of your life now. Because these peoples aren't going back. It's staying this way forever.
No, really?
No, but it feels like it.
Oh, okay.
The rest of my life, I'm an eye freak.
Jeez. At least, do you have floaters?
No.
Oh, be glad you don't have floaters.
You do? Get that inspected.
I have.
And what they say, like, you need to get a new eyeball.
No, they're just floaters. And talk about like feeling schizophrenic or something. Every now and then I think I see something and I'm like, wait, who's that? But it's
that's
just
so
a
funny.
floater. It's just
Who's that guy with the knife? Oh, it's a float. It's an eyelash.
It's a floater. It's okay. Listen, I know that this has been it's not like brand new anymore, but I'm sure in your book, in your latest book, you've talked, like, there's communication woven in through facilitating, cultivating a team. So can you just tell people what that book is, where to get it, all the
Sure.
stuff?
So my new book is called All In, How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams. And I deep dive into bilateral communication, where the leaders are talking to the team and team back, and how you manage those communications. And most interestingly, there's a section around safety, specifically safe communications. How do we feel comfortable putting our full selves out there?
Nice. All right, old Patball. I hope your eyeballs recover and all is well. And
thank you, Papa. Appreciates that. Bootin. Papa and Bootin appreciates it.
All righty. See ya.
If you're enjoying our podcast and would like to hear more from us, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts so we can keep making great content.
Talk to you later, besties.